for those viewers who are kind of new to this topic, there's a lot of talk about the rebuilding of the temple. And, for those of you who don't know, about 3 months ago, 5 red heifers arrived in Israel, all the way from first Tennessee, then Texas. They weren't going to allow the red heifers into Israel on religious grounds, so the owners put on the papers pets, and they were allowed to bring them into the country on that basis, which is quite comical.
Well, they did look pretty docile, so maybe they would make good pets.
Yeah, maybe, but a little bit cruel to cut them up afterwards,
Yeah, that's
sacrifice them, and then
true.
maybe eat them. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
And
anyhow,
just for the audience that doesn't know, they will take the red heifer if they get one to be perfect. About a year from now, they will be able to then, if they choose, sacrifice it, take the ashes, mix it with water, and use it in a purification ceremony as described in Numbers chapter 19. Correct?
exactly. The red heifer has to be 2 years and 1 day old, and that will be in about another 9 or so months. There is a place on the Mount of Olives that they have purchased. The religious Jews have purchased that land to do that. And once that happens, then they will sprinkle the ashes on the priest. Now, there's about 6 young men from the day that they were born. They were set apart. They were protected as to not be defiled, and they are now at an age where they will be the designated priests to fulfill the job. Um, and then here is the real, in my opinion, this is a real game changer. And this ties in with the main news that's been going on here in Israel. We now have a brand new government. It's been sworn in. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for the third time, is our leader. But here's the spin. While he is the official leader, not too sure how much he is going to be the main caller of the shots. And the reason being is his government now is made up of a number of parties, right-wing religious. And the big game changer here is that one of the main political parties in Netanyahu's coalition, the leader, a man called Itamar Ben Gvir, quite a radical right-wing religious leader.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Well, let me tell you, he's sending waves not just throughout Israel but throughout the world. He will be his position. He is the Minister of Internal Security. That means
He's in
he will
charge of
be
the Temple Mount, right?
the police, the Mossad, the border control, and the big one is the Temple Mount. And according to the laws of the state of Israel, the High Court of Justice, that if the leader of the police say that it's okay for Jews to go up and pray and break the long-standing status quo that in 1967 was placed over the Temple Mount by our very left-wing defense minister at the time, Moshe Dayan, the man with the patch over his eye. He was hit by a sniper. That status quo means that nothing can change on the Temple Mount, which, by the way, over the years, even as recent as a couple of years ago, the Muslims, they are changing the status quo all the time. And I've got a list of times they've done it. They've secretly built mosques under the ground. They have changed the platform pavements. They are doing it all the time. We have not changed the status, but literally last week, I had a group from San Antonio on the day Ben Gvir went up to the Temple Mount. I don't know if you heard it, Brannon,
I
but
heard about it.
it was big news. Everyone was saying that it's going to cause troubles. Hamas were threatening
Yep.
us.
Yep.
They even sent a missile over from the Gaza Strip. The United Nations held. the Palestinian Authority sent members to the United Nations Security Council in a protest. Now, Ben Gvir actually didn't do anything wrong. He didn't change the status quo. He is a member of the Israeli government. He has the right to go up. He didn't pray. So he didn't break anything. But look, let's be honest. The Palestinians are not stupid. They know why Ben Gvir went up. It was a political and religious statement by him going up. So they're not stupid. However, in actuality, he did nothing wrong. But the Palestinians just yesterday went to the United Nations Security Council, complaining, arguing it was wrong. It's creating a problem. And of course, our foreign minister to the United Nations, basically said this is a farce. Sadly, the United States spokesman, he kind of sat in the middle. He did not say that Ben Gvir did nothing wrong. He basically said, now come on, Palestinians, Israelis, let's both try to keep the calm. But going back to the reason why he went up there, obviously, being a religious Orthodox Jew, he comes from the old school of a man, an American Orthodox Jew who immigrated to Israel in the 1970s, Meir Kahane. And he was an extremely right-wing Jewish man who became a member of the government, of the Knesset. He actually was assassinated in New York by the Muslims because of his radical stand. And back in those days, Ben Gvir, who was a young man, 17-year-old, he was actually a supporter of Meir Kahane, which basically was calling, I'm not going to quote what he quoted, but it was pretty radical. Anyhow, he's made it clear in recent interviews in English that he was a young man, he was 17, he was hot-blooded, he said things he regrets. He's not in that camp anymore. However, it's pretty obvious he, being a religious Jew, he knows the Bible. He knows what the religious organizations want. He knows in Exodus 25, when the Lord says, and they shall prepare a sanctuary for me, says the Lord. And this is the holy high calling for religious Jews, believing that it will usher in the Messiah. So the two latest updates, not so much about the Red Heifers, there's nothing new about that, but the two latest updates in connection with the temple, with the whole topic of the rebuilding of the temple. Number one, I saw an article recently on a private article. A religious Jewish organization, they are working on the priestly instruments for the musicians to play, and they showed welders meeting and metal workers meeting out trumpets. That was the main article. It was actually on the trumpets and on the flutes, the ancient sounding flutes. They're working on this because this is an important part back in the Second Temple, where they had the Levites, they had the priests playing music up on the Temple Mount. So this is another part of the whole big puzzle, the whole big picture. We already know that the priestly garments, we know that the priestly instruments, the shovels, the spades, the butchering instruments, as most of us know, or maybe you don't know, that basically the priestly work up on the in and around the temple, basically they're butchers. When you think of all the sacrifices that needed to be done, and of course the blood, the channels of blood. Number of years ago, the drainage channel from the Temple Mount right down to the pools of Siloam was found. Now pilgrims can actually do a walk up that path, but that was the drainage path where all the blood from the millions of animals sacrificed flowed down, right down into the pools of Siloam through the city of David. Well, the latest news, and this has been big news everywhere that I've been seeing, is Eli Shukran, who is he also is a Israeli tour guide like myself, but he's also an archaeologist. He's the man who actually found the ancient pools of Siloam.
Now, we
Well,
saw that
he
in the news. That was all over the place. Those have been hidden for, what, 2,000 years or so?
2,000 years. The only place,
This is where
so
Jesus healed the blind man.
exactly, John chapter 9, the healing of the blind man. He spat in the ground, got the
Made the
mud
mud.
rubbed off his eyes, and I believe that act that the Lord Jesus did, I believe he was connecting the blind man to the creation story when the Lord made man out of the dust, out of the earth. And furthermore, it was there that the Lord said, I am the light of the world. Again, going back to the story of creation, from darkness, bringing the light. Let there be light. Or at least John, that was part of his goal in presenting that story, connecting the Lord to being the creator. In any event, Eli Shukran, who found that section, which is only a very small section for the public to see, they are now in the process of opening up the original parameters of the pools of Siloam to the public.
Wow.
And that's really exciting. And let me tell you, that he may not know this. Eli Shukran, the archaeologist, he's not religious at all. But I just think the timing of it, because the pools of Siloam was the place that the priests would actually go to, and not just the priests, all pilgrims would go at the bottom of the city of David. They would go and they would purify themselves. It's like it's a mikveh, a baptismal pool. They would purify themselves in preparation to go up to the Temple Mount, either take or buy a sacrifice at the market and present it over to the priest. So I just think the timing, the red heifers, the pools of Siloam, the making of the instruments, Ben Gvir, who is now a religious man in charge of the Temple Mount.
You can't. What are the odds of all these things happening? I'm doing a series on Sunday nights called The Convergence of End Time Events. And I'm looking at all kinds of events that are occurring right now. You got Syria there, and inside Syria, you got Turkey and Russia and Iran right in Syria, right there, a stone's throw from where you go all the time in Israel. We've got them building a Ben Gurion Airport. They're going to build a tram to take the 70 nations or so can land there and go to the Temple Mount. We got the red heifers being shipped. We got the pools of Siloam being found now. You've got the guy in charge who is actually now militarily able to be in control of the Temple Mount, who is very conservative and wants a third temple. You've got the call for a one world order. You've got the call for one world government, one world economy. You've got the what I think is really the mark of the beast technology. I'm not saying it's the mark of the beast, but the technology is being put into place. People are being conditioned for what Revelation 13 talks about. I mean, I could just keep going. What are the odds of the convergence of all of these events? Now you just added 3 or 4 that are happening right there in Israel. What are the odds of all these events converging right now? You go to the temple, which I'm sure you take the tours to, the Temple Institute, and you see so many of the things they have already to go for the third temple. Now you're telling us they're building more instruments. What are the odds of all this? Ancient pool of Siloam to be excavated and open to the public. Okay, and Aaron just explained why that's so important, right? Well, let me get your take on this. Let's see here. Here we go. Jews begin building third temple in Israel. Independence Day. This was from May of last year, and some of the rabbis began cutting stones. I'm sure you read that, right? That article?
Yes.
So there's a lot of activity going on. Well, with that being said, let me ask you, what are the chances you think of the temple being built next to the Dome of the Rock, the mosque there? Do you think someone supposedly did a study, and they took the measurements, and they say it'll fit perfectly right there? Now, my question to you is, do you believe that there will be an ecumenical situation? I mean, all of a sudden right now we're seeing a mosque, a church, and a Jewish temple being built. So I think it's in Nebraska. We see this being built in Dubai. There's a lot of ecumenical things going. Do you think there would ever be some kind of compromise or covenant that is confirmed that would allow them to live in harmony and actually show that picture again, guys, allow for that right there to occur? Do you think we are entering an ecumenical phase where they'll agree to this, or is this completely impossible and that mosque somehow, either with a missile that goes astray during a conflict and takes it out, and therefore clearing the area? What do you see happening?
Well, actually, some of my good friends who also happen to be tour guides, they laugh at me when I actually suggest that being a possibility, what you've just mentioned, Brannon. I do see it as a possibility, especially now that Benjamin Netanyahu, he said now that he's the prime minister, his number one actually his number one and number two priority. Number one is to stop Iran becoming nuclear, and we can, if we've got time, we can go into that. But the other thing is he wants to get Saudi Arabia into the Abraham Accords, meaning he wants to officially make peace with Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so let me ask you this for the sake of time. I'm going to ask quick questions, quick answers. Do you think it's possible one of the chips for Saudi Arabia would be fine, but we want you to become a part of our banking system, because the BRICS banking system, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, now I guess Argentina is going to join, China and Russia are talking about Saudi Arabia joining. What if they were to get Israel to say, we'll join too, and they start building a banking system and back it with some kind of central bank digital currency that's backed by gold? I mean, that could be a bargaining chip for Saudi Arabia to get Israel involved. What are your thoughts? I mean, they're being abandoned by America, so why should they care about the American petrodollar? I mean, kiss America goodbye under this dictator. I mean, these people are anti-Semites of the highest regard. You know, my advice to Benjamin Netanyahu was kiss America goodbye, buddy. The handwriting's on the wall. The country's being run by anti-Semites. Do what's best for your country. Kiss the petrodollar goodbye and throw in with these guys and do what's in your best interest of your country. I don't want him to do that for the sake of my nation and my dollar, but I understand he's got to do what's in his best interest. And right now, we got people in Washington in both parties. A lot of them are anti-Semites. So do what's in your best interest. And I wonder if Saudi Arabia could use that to bring Israel into their banking.
Absolutely. And with Netanyahu, his actually main strength is finance. He's been the Minister of Finance a number of times. He's a genius when it comes to the economy. If it works in the best interest of Saudi and Israel, anything's possible. Everything's possible there. But going back to the ecumenical movement, that is one of the main possibilities of the Jews being allowed to build the temple. The other big possibility is that simply the number of Orthodox Jews who want to build, the number going up, they're breaking records all the time, the numbers going up to the Temple Mount to pray, that they will just go up and take it by force. Although the danger of that, of course, is what happened with King David, who was a man of war. He had blood on his hands, therefore he wasn't allowed to build the temple. But these are, ifs and buts and question marks. We actually don't need to second guess, because it's all being played out in front of us very rapidly, very quickly. Let's see what happens with Netanyahu trying to make peace with Saudi Arabia. Let's see what happens with what he wants to do with Iran, because just a month ago, the Americans and the Israelis did joint exercises, simulating exercises together. And under the Biden administration, this is a bit of a surprise. And it could be a political statement, a political move. It won't be easy, because it wasn't like the Iraqi nuclear reactor that we took out in 1982, where there was only one or two isolated places. Iran is a huge piece of land. The installation plants that we know of are all scattered, hidden in many, many different places. Certainly, it would definitely help the cause if the United States and Israel went together on this. But if Israel went alone, I think we could have some big problems in retaliation. So this is where our government is heading.